Hey guys, this is Joe Harper with Reformed Truther Ministry. So in today's video, this is Hunting After the Giants in Minnesota Part 3. So in Part 1, I went and looked at the giant mounds in Indian Mounds Regional Park in St. Paul, Minnesota. In Part 2, I went to Dayton, Minnesota and looked at the mounds located there and then went and found mounds around Lake Minnetonka. So in Part 3, I went to Brainerd, Minnesota, and it was exciting because I actually found mounds in a location that was different than where I thought they were gonna be. So on the internet, I found that there were mounds around what was called Gull Lake. Um, in that area, there was Aboriginal mounds, and we ended up going and looking in that area, my friend and I, and we didn't see them there, but we found mounds around Lost Lake or Long Lake. And so that was really exciting that we were hiking in that area and we knew they were close to that area, close to the upper Gull Lake, but we found them in a different place than where we thought we were going to find them. So that was really exciting. And we got really good footage of them. And you can really see really clearly they're elevated, they're round. Some of them are longer and snake-like, some are more round and circular, but compared to the terrain around them, it's unmistakable that they're mounds. So that was really exciting. And then the other thing that I did today for the first time in this video is I went searching after looking for Bigfoot or Sasquatch in northern Minnesota, and I went to a place called Remer, Minnesota, and hiked in the woods around there because that's a hot spot for Bigfoot sightings. And so for those of you who don't know, a lot of Christians have never thought through Sasquatch from a biblical perspective. But if you've really looked into the Genesis 6 narrative and you understand what the Bible talks about, the Nephilim and hybrids, pre-flood world, and it really puts you in a space where you're able to have your mind more open to understand what is Sasquatch, which is the term which most researchers go about looking at it from. And a lot of people ask the question, what is Bigfoot? And I think it is a physical creature that's in the woods, but I also believe that there's a supernatural element to it. And what I believe it probably is that it is a cryptid that is a descendant or a deviation from the original Nephilim and the giants. So it's obviously has some deviation from your typical normal giants, but I think it goes back to that paradigm of Genesis 6 and the Nephilim. And many people think that Bigfoot is a myth or an urban legend, but that what a lot of people don't understand is that, for example, the Native American tribes for centuries they called it the Sabe. In groups in Minnesota, for example, like the Ojibwe, one of the original 7 nations of Upper North America, they believed that it was real and that it interacted with humans and that it's told in their stories, their legends, their history, and they believed that it was a real creature. And that obviously you'd say, well, Native American legends and myths, that's not much. But then you have to understand that there have been hundreds of thousands of people across the world that have seen either Bigfoot or other cryptids. And cryptids is just a term for a cryptozoological creature. So I went out in the woods in this video and I went and searched around. And what we were looking for is we were looking specifically for what are called T structures. And you're going to see them very clearly in the video. And I talk about them because many credible researchers, you find out that they say wherever there's territory in the woods where Bigfoot is, that you'll find what are called T structures, where you'll have two trees and then you'll have another log horizontally going through it, and it will form like a T structure because you have the horizontal branches and you have the V, and it will be shaped in a way where it looks as if this didn't come about organically from a tree falling, but it came about as the result of the Bigfoot placing it there. And there have been many Bigfoot researchers that have claimed that this is part of it. And then other things that Sasquatch researchers will talk about is they'll say, and this isn't as clear as the T structures, but you'll see that sometimes you'll see large branches broken. It'll look like there's a very clean cut, like a clean snap, and that this didn't happen organically, but it happened from Bigfoot causing that to happen. I think the T structures are the clearest, but obviously there's still a lot of mystery surrounding all of this. So I think, but if you want to get into more research on Bigfoot, one guy whose channel is really good, a man who recently passed away, a Christian by the name of Scott Carpenter. I spent a lot of time researching the Sasquatch and looking into them. He lived in the Smoky Mountains region of Tennessee, and he had a lot of interactions with what he believed were Sasquatch, and he was very knowledgeable. And then you have podcasts like I've really enjoyed listening to a lot of the Blurry Creatures podcasts recently, where they've talked about not only Sasquatch and Bigfoot on their podcast, but they've talked about Genesis 6, the Nephilim, the Giants, and they've had a lot of really great guests on their show to talk about all these topics. So those are good resources. Scott Carpenter's YouTube channel and the Blurry Creatures podcast. Those are good places to go if you want to start getting into Bigfoot and thinking through that from a biblical perspective. But of course, you got to keep an open mind. But all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to the footage I got. So I hope you guys enjoy it. God bless. Hey guys, this is Joe Harper with Reformed Truth and Ministries. So today I'm up here at Gull Lake in Brainerd, Minnesota, and I'm looking for more burial mounds connected to the giants of North America. So this is a really cool area today because this is an area that's filled with mounds that go back to what mainstream archaeologists call the woodland period. So these mounds are connected, they're about 2,000 years old, and they go back to history predating the Native American tribes that lived in this area, such as the Dakota and the Ojibwe peoples. And then also today, I'm going to be potentially going to Remer, Minnesota, and looking for Sasquatch. This is an area that's known as a hotbed for Bigfoot and Sasquatch sightings. And that's another creature that has a lot of history in the origins of the Native American people, such as the Ojibwe and the Dakota, who called them the Sabwe. So we're going to see what we find today. We're going to see if we can find some mounds and maybe find some Sasquatch. So we'll see what we find.
Well, if you could find it and give people direction, that'd be worth something.
See, that's what's hard to say. Like, you get hills like this, they could be mounds or they could be just hills. Look over there, that looks like a mound. We should just film this area.
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
That looks like, I think that looks like a mound. I'm not even lying.
Go up to it. So I can...
So I'm standing here and we have what potentially looks like a mound, and this is pretty typical of what you see. You see a lot of times they're covered in grass, sediment, what have you, but you have a very clear mound-like structure and you have a very clear rise in elevation, and that's really what you're looking for. So you have no idea what's underneath these mounds. And there could be Native American remains, there could be giant remains. It's just all a matter of, there's just a lot of mystery surrounding all that. So we're going to keep looking around. Pretty cool. I think that looks like a mound.
What about over here? Like that thing over there?
Yeah. A lot of times they're snake-like like that too. Like that does look like a mound. I'm not even lying. But like I said, the only way to find out for sure is to dig into them and go to jail.
Let's do it.
It's a felony. I won't tell if you won't tell. The problem is, what do you do when you find the skeleton and people say, where'd you find it? Well, I dug into the mound and the government comes.
That's pretty big, man.
I think that is, honestly, brother, that could be a mound. I'm not even lying. That's what they look like.
That's another one too, I feel like.
I'm gonna take a few. I'm gonna use my phone. So as you see here on camera here, I got a pretty clear mound structure. And if you look around here, this entire area is filled with what appears to be burial mounds here in the woods in Brainerd, Minnesota. And this one here is probably the clearest of the mounds. as I get close to it, you really see that it's long. It's a long and potentially snake-like looking mound, and that's what a lot of these mounds found all across North America look like. Sometimes they're very round and circular, and sometimes they're longer and snake-like, and there's just no way to know what potentially could be under these hills or under these mounds unless one was to dig into them, which we're obviously not going to do today. But this is really looks like an area that is potentially a burial ground for mounds. I'm just doing another panorama here, and there's a lot of trees and stuff in the way, but you see this entire area is a ground for mounds here around Gull Lake of Brainerd, Minnesota. So this is a pretty cool area. I think we found potentially an entire burial ground for mounds. So we found here another mound. This whole area is littered with mounds. So I'm standing here. We're on the shores of Lost Lake here, Brainerd, Minnesota, and if I get closer to it and I get a little lower to the ground, you can really see that it's clearly elevated. It's mound shape. It's completely different from the rest of the terrain that you walk around these areas. It's not natural elevation. It's clearly, we're seeing here potentially, very likely a burial mound, like a lot of the other ones we've seen. It makes you wonder what you would have been able to find in the 1800s where they tore them all up and destroyed them all.
Right.
Hundreds of them.
Right.
I mean, Minnesota's like the mound capital of the world.
Right. Is it?
I mean, they don't actually call it that, but essentially it is.
Think so?
Yeah. I mean, you find them in Ohio and Wisconsin and like the whole Midwest, but like Minnesota is the hotspot for it.
I think it's pretty cool that we found mounds that weren't marked out as mounds.
Right.
You know? In some ways, I think that's way cooler than going to a place where it's all marked off mound. You know?
Yeah.
No matter how big the mound is.
Yeah, I mean, people go, oh, he went to the park and filmed himself.
Right.
Which is fine, but yeah, in the middle of the woods, that's cooler.
This actually takes a little bit of effort. And like, way better to not know, kind of discover it for yourself and just be given directions to this site that is blocked off where people visit often.
Right.
No one would expect mounds out here.
No.
You wouldn't expect it.
If you don't know about them, and not very many people do, you'd walk right by them.
I think those were mounds.
I think
for
they
sure.
were too. They're just too, I mean, that's not a natural.
Out of the ordinary. Compared to the rest of this terrain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those are mine. I'm almost 100%. Are we? So I'm standing here in Remer, Minnesota, and it's a small town in about an hour north of Brainerd, Minnesota, and we have officially found Bigfoot. So that's pretty good. Mystery solved, guys. But we might do a little hiking in this area. We are kind of looking to see, just doing a little bit of Sasquatch investigation, and I'll talk about that more in the end of my video. For those of you who don't know, Remer, Minnesota is kind of a Bigfoot capital of the world. So I am at Bigfoot Gas and Gifts, and there's Bigfoot stuff all around to see. So we are investigating the great mysteries of the Sasquatch. Hiking some of the woods here, northern Minnesota, close to Remer. And we've seen some interesting branch structures in these woods, and we're just hiking around seeing if we can see any potential evidence for some Sasquatch. We'll see what we find here. This is a pretty heavily wooded area. Yeah, when you just look at this, it doesn't look normal. It looks unorganic. It looks like these T structures that researchers attribute to Sasquatch. So, does that look normal to you or not? Those clicks, how they're all
up like that.
Which ones?
Just this whole structure, this whole thing.
Up like what? Show
Like
me.
they're just like like this is kind of T-shaped. Up there they're just kind of bent over, but I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing stuff.
Coming from this.
Yeah, like
Yeah, why would it be?
You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I want to be careful. I don't want to be seeing stuff that I don't want to be fitting everything into the preconceived notion, but that's what they say you look for.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So that's what I'm asking you. Like, does that look normal to you, or does that look organic, or does it look like somebody did that?
Some of it looks weird. Let Joe lead the way. Inspector Joe.
Okay. Look at this. That's what I'm talking about. Look at that. You see what I'm getting at? Are you recording?
I've been recording, yep.
Okay. Well, this is these T-shaped structures that many credible Sasquatch researchers say that you find that twigs will be snapped, clean cut snapped, and a lot of times there'll be branches that are inserted between two other tree posts. And and yeah, that's what you're looking for. That can be evidence that Sasquatch is in the area. I mean, this does not look normal.
Try to lift it up. Come over here. Lift right here with me. 1, 2, 3. What in the world?
We barely moved it.
Where could this tree have come from?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Keep your eyes peeled.
I mean, be honest, does that look normal to you? Does that look, I mean, now I told you, so you're biased because I told you about these last night, but, I mean, when you look at that, does that look strange to you?
Tree fell.
Pretty good shot.
Straight through here. Straight through here. Straight through here. And then straight through here. In between.
Yeah, when you just look at this, it doesn't look normal. It looks unorganic. It looks like these teeth structures that researchers attribute to Sasquatch. We could be closer than we even realize. Another one.
Dude, that's pretty, this one's pretty crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
Look at that. It's like impossible.
So what are the odds of those two both being?
Look at this. Where is this coming from? It's like it's just placed in between. It's not even like this fell.
And that's the thing about it, right? Like once you
Especially
start
this one.
once you start to think through it, like you see one of them, you go, okay, that's kind of weird. You see two, you go, okay, maybe coincidence. You see three, 4, you start to wonder.
Well, especially, it's like the tree didn't fall.
Right.
Because there's no stump.
Right.
Like that. What? Okay.
You see what I'm getting at? You're seeing what I'm laying down here. It's not normal.
Where did this one come from?
Look at that, clean cut. Clean cut branch.
What do you mean?
Well, I could have fallen, but like they always say that like sometimes these really big trunks,
Yeah.
and they're like snapped like that.
Yeah.
And the way it always looks like not that it just fell, but sometimes maybe not particularly this one, but yeah, like you have a snap.
That one looks like a clean cut.
Like a clean cut snap, exactly.
This middle one right here?
Right. That one right. This one right here. The T structures are the easier. Like that's more easier to spot.
I feel like that right one looks like a pretty clean cut. This one.
This one right here. Yeah. You see what I'm getting at.
Like that one, there are no. Like, yeah.
So like, yeah, it's one of those things where people can say plausible deniability. You're seeing what you want to see, but to be honest, it's weird. So here we are in the middle of the woods of north of Remer, and we've been hiking around and we've seen some pretty interesting T structures, and these T structures are what many Sasquatch researchers say are done by Sasquatch in order to mark their territory, or that you find these T structures in areas where they're located. So it's really been interesting just walking through the woods today and seeing what we've seen, and I think it's been another productive day. Obviously it leaves many more questions about the giant mounds and about the Sasquatch, but just building on the research we've done and continuing to move forward. So yeah, I hope this has been an enjoyable video for you all, and continue to look into these things, the giant mounds and Sasquatch. And that being said, this is Joe Harper with Reformed Truth Ministries. God bless.